welcome.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thanks a lot. So this is our third webinar, actually, and we are happy to share your thoughts and different perspectives related with these COVID processes and also your backgrounds. And this webinar is going to be about the technology effect of these processes and the future of it, how technology can help to be more resilient during and after these processes. And I would like to start with like a general question for all of you, and if you can answer this within 2 minutes related with these COVID processes. Let's start with Alex. I would like to ask the question and then you can answer one by one. What would be the role of technology in building resilient and sustainable waste management and recycling systems? And if you can start with introducing your business and adding your thought afterwards would be perfect.
Certainly. So my company is Helpsy. We keep clothing out of the trash. We do this primarily through collections from the public that we do with collection bins that we have out across the Northeast of America. We have a little over 1,000 locations we collect from, and these are schools, church parking lots, shopping centers, supermarkets. Where people visit and congregate regularly. That's where we collect from. So for us, it's our business has been similar to other recycling businesses. The prices have declined, the market has declined to some degree. For us, not as much as say plastics or paper have, but it's still a thin margin business overall. So while at first when we started doing this a little more than 3 years ago, it seemed like technology was kind of a waste. It was money and time spent that we didn't have, and that is something that our competitors didn't seem to be investing in at all. I think we quickly realized that it was it wasn't a waste, but it was actually exceedingly important in order to remain viable, remain efficient, remain profitable, because we can't you can't keep doing things the way that they've been done, especially in a market that's as volatile as it is right now. So the way we've layered in technology is to be able to react quickly to changes, to collect a lot of data and make data-driven decisions rather than just judging by your gut instinct and these sorts of things. So we're transforming. We're really leading the way in this industry, transforming clothing collection into a data-driven industry, which I'm sure to folks who've been in this for decades would seem sort of a wild thought.
Thanks a lot. So Colin, I know you are really familiar with the technology and you're specifically focusing on making all processes smart. So could you please introduce your company, what you're doing, and your thoughts as well?
Yeah, thanks very much for having me on this webinar. It's obviously a subject dear to my heart. So RecycleSmart is a waste and recycling management company. We are basically a technology layer between the generators of the waste, the commercial businesses that we manage, and then the service providers, which are the waste and recycling haulers that have the trucks and the bins. So really our role is to make things as efficient and easy as possible. And so that's how we've been using technology, specifically on the IoT side, deploying several thousand IoT container sensors across Canada, and then using the data from those sensors to make sure that our customers' bins are collected when they're at least 85% full, and also monitoring things like vendor performance. Did the truck actually show up on the day it was supposed to and pick it up? So we've been doing this for quite a while, for about 7 years, and obviously IoT is becoming more and more common, so it's expanding as we grow every year. I think what we saw with with kind of what's happened in the last couple of months is that the overall waste and recycling system in North America is not that flexible. So as long as everything runs kind of as per normal, it's fine. But when we have something like a pandemic and we have to really radically change our business models, that's where technology can really help us to be more nimble. So that's where we've been using technology to kind of create a sustainable business, is all of a sudden saying this isn't the same anymore. We now need to radically change our collection schedules, and we're using technology to do that. So you've got businesses that used to be collected multiple times a week, all of a sudden they're completely closed. You've also got businesses that are way busier than normal, like grocery stores and distribution, where their business volumes have kind of gone the other direction. So that's really how we've been using it, is, again, like Alex was saying, using the data to make smart decisions instead of just sitting there waiting for the phone to ring and having customers freak out because they've got too much garbage, or maybe they have no garbage and they're closed and they don't need any service. So trying to be more proactive is really how we've been using it.
Thanks a lot. So basically, maybe we can summarize this by using the data, specifically the real-time data. You can give more dynamic service to those specific points. If there is a need for the service, you can give a service. If not, of course, you don't have to go there. You don't have to make a cost for that.
That's exactly it. Yeah. And for our vendors, I mean, they've obviously had some challenges with labor. So we have to be smart because we only have so many trucks and drivers. And if we have less trucks and drivers because of sickness, and also a lot of our vendors are also working on residential contracts, which the waste in residential has increased. So we have to be really smart, because if we're driving around picking up empty bins at closed businesses, and meanwhile there's a grocery store across town that's overflowing, that's not very smart, right? We should be going to the grocery store that needs the service and not going to a closed restaurant.
Definitely. So thanks a lot for your thoughts. So Mr. Singer, so my general question was about first, could you please introduce your business? I know you're quite experienced in the waste management area, so you have a lot experience. But how do you see the technology effect on sustainability and resilience of the waste management sector, specifically nowadays and in the future?
Well, thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here in this webinar. Thank you for the colleagues also to share their knowledge. As you know, I'm the managing director of Rumble in Brazil. Rumble is a Danish company that was created and founded 75 years ago to reconstruct Europe after the Second World War. And we are now facing the reconstruction of the world again after COVID-19. So Rumble is a leading company in the waste management area. We have a huge amount of work in waste to energy projects, in recycling, in smart cities, livable cities, and many others. In Brazil, it's interesting because I'm here working for more than 40 years in the consulting business. And in '92, in the Conference of the Parties in Brazil, ECO 92, that was the United Nations Conference for Development and Environment, we put together a program named Recycle Brazil, Brazil Recycle, to foster this area, together with a friend from New Hampshire, Mr. Craig Caserino, that was the first developers of the material recovery facility in the US. And we thought that Brazil was ready to begin a smart new area of recycling. We use these three famous words here: recycle, reduce, reuse, and recycle. That was quite famous in the past. And unfortunately, waste is very associated to social problems in Brazil. Like in our developing countries, now we face a lot of challenges and problems. Of course, the things has evolved very much. Some international companies have been and landed in Brazil, like Suez, Solvi, Waste Management. But even then, they didn't accomplish, they couldn't progress so far as we are now facing a new wave to implement a smart waste system in the resilient direction. You know? So the waste management was really associated with municipalities management and companies that were quite familiar and not very well technology oriented. So, but as the things evolved, as the consumption evolved, as we think that Brazil entered in a new era of the waste management, we are one of the largest recycling of aluminum now. So we generate around 200,000 tons of waste, per day. So it's a considerable, huge amount of waste. And now we are discussing how can we implement more sophisticated and smart waste management system. First of all, I think the waste problem is not a matter of how much we generate, but how much we don't generate. Because a clean city is not the one that we clean most, but the one that we pollute less. So a few time ago, I think in the 90s, somebody came to São Paulo, that's a huge city with 20 million inhabitants, say, wow, it's amazing how the city is clean, because they clean every day. But the real challenge is to reduce consumption first, then how can we reuse smartly, and then how can we get into the circular economy by recycling these materials. And the industry took a very important part in that scenario. Working with the industry to use the waste as a co-product and try to give and to set a value for this resource instead of just disposing it, bring to the companies a new way of thinking. So now we have passed a national law for solid waste that's not fully implemented. All the landfills, they have to have a total waste management system. And the companies are beginning to use smart technology like Eureka is promoting around the world to improve their hauling and collecting systems, the citizen participation in the process, the media awareness to the process, the selection of the waste that can be disposed or returned to production. But even though, we have a very serious opposition from large producers, for example, plastic. They didn't want the recycling business. They wanted to sell the new products instead of recycling. They prefer to have incineration rather than recycling and reusing. So we are also implementing the services of recycled bottles for the fertilizers and pesticides area. We are using the bottle-to-bottle systems for used oil. And now Rumble had this opportunity to partner with Eureka in Brazil and to promote further a smart way thinking about waste.
John, I think we cannot hear you. You're mute, I think.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks. So thanks a lot, Mr. Singer. So I am going to ask you what kind of challenges we may face about the technology in the second round, because this is an interesting topic as well. Of course, like all of us, we know different technological approaches, and we are facing different challenges on the different markets. So I would like to hear more about it in the second round. But first, I would like to ask a specific question to Alex. We had a short conversation before the webinar, and if you can explain us how this pandemic situation has changed the people's acts, specifically from your business point of view, like are people throwing much textile or doing different things after this pandemic period or during it?
Mm-hmm. Certainly. So for us, we're kind of caught in the middle in our industry because our customers, for the large part, we sell into secondhand markets, people who sort things out that go into thrift stores all over the country, all over the world. And a lot of those stores are still closed. So if a lot of our customers can't do business, we don't have anywhere to sell to. So we come, to a similar sort of place where, other recycling industries have come to in recent years, like paper, for instance. You used to be able to sell used paper and there was a market for that. You could make money doing it. These municipalities did. Then all of a sudden it just became trash. And what are you going to do? So we're in, we can't throw everything we collect into the trash. First of all, it would cost us a fortune. Second of all, it's contradictory to our mission. But we do, so we try to keep up with the, with what we collect and find new homes for it. And in these times, people get stuck at home. I told the story earlier that, when people get stuck at home for a snow day in the Northeast, one of the things that they do is clean out the closet. It's a task that they put off forever until they have some extra time. And that snow day is the extra time. So, we usually get inundated with donations the day after a snow day happens in, in New York City or in Massachusetts. And so, what we've had recently is like basically 2 months of snow days, because people are at home and they have extra time, and they're tackling all these projects that they never get around to, like cleaning out the closet. So now when they clean out the closet, where does it go? We're lucky enough to, because we're essentially a waste management operation, we're deemed as essential business. I don't know, that's sort of what the nomenclature here is in America. So we've been continuing to operate as best we can. However, many of our competitors have not been able to for whatever reason. And also, people oftentimes take these things to like directly to a thrift store in their neighborhood or in their church basement or something. So a lot of those, a lot of the places that they would normally get rid of their old things rather than throw them in the trash are unavailable. So we've been able to fill in a lot of that gap. So we're collecting more, but able to sell less, and trying to make ends meet while we're stuck in the middle here.
So thanks a lot for the insights, specifically in your region and in your business. And Colin, I would like to ask you, as you mentioned, like the technology help waste management companies, specifically during these days, which we need more dynamic approaches. Do you see increase in the speed of digitization? Are waste management companies more willing to use these kind of technology currently, or they are, I would say, they are stopping the investment for the technology? How do is there any change in the behavior of waste management companies?
I think if we look at over the past year and a bit since the recycling markets became really challenging, we've definitely seen companies using things like camera technology, either on the trucks or in the bins, to identify contamination. So definitely the waste haulers and the recycling haulers, and some of them also have processing plants as well, right? There's a whole kind of mix of operators in the ecosystem. But definitely contamination has become a bigger issue because contaminated loads, you used to be able to move loads that were contaminated or had a certain degree of contamination, and now it's just become impossible. If you have contamination, it's essentially waste. So that focus on contamination and using technology to tag bins that are contaminated, also allow drivers to quickly identify bins that are contaminated in the field and then reroute to garbage trucks or to waste trucks, which we didn't see a couple of years ago, but now you'll get a notification saying your bin was contaminated. We've already sent the waste truck out to dump it. Whereas in the past, that bin would have been dumped, it would have got to the processing plant, and then they would have found out, that there was a lot of contamination. So definitely we're seeing, I always think that technology gets used in the way that motivates our own internal interests first, and then down the road. So if you think of any other technology, that we use in our lives, we often use it first in a way that benefits us. And then as it gets more mature, we start to see some of the kind of auxiliary uses of technology in terms of, like Google Maps is a good example. We use it to get from point A to point B, but one of the other, auxiliary uses is if we all use it and share our traffic info, then we can also figure out which roads are busier. I think right now we're still at the what's in it for me in terms of technology with waste haulers. So for them right now, the biggest thing is reducing contamination. In terms of on-demand pickups and making things more dynamic, there's not a lot in it for them at the immediate outset because it affects the business model. But I think long-term, when we see kind of like the bigger kind of economic challenges about, reducing carbon emissions, harder to get drivers, things like that, then eventually I think it will say, oh, you know what, this dynamic pickup, not only is it good for my customer, but it means I don't need to have as many drivers. I don't have as many trucks on the road. This actually could be good for me. But I think we're still a little ways off in North America anyway from getting to that point with technology. So we're starting with the reducing contamination because that's an instant concern that the waste haulers and recycling companies have right now. But I think we'll see it change in the next couple of years into the other sides as well.
Good. So as far as I see, the technology is penetrating from different perspectives, different parts of the world. So you mentioned that contamination is the biggest issue or the penetration point for the waste management sector. But in some areas, just tracking some operations like proof of service is another issue. So the technology is available, but related with the current challenges or biggest challenges, maybe the penetration, first penetration point to the sector might be different as far as I see. So thanks for your thoughts. So Mr. Singer, as I mentioned, I was going to ask you about different challenges if you would like to use or promote different technological solutions in the markets as like Brazil. What kind of challenges you have faced so far or you may face in the future? Because it's not easy to change the behavior of people, behavior of authorities. So what kind of challenges you can mention to us?
Well, my experience, not only as a businessman, but as a citizen, the biggest challenge for all of the developing world is governance. Now, we have good laws, we got good systems, we have the industry, we have technology. But if we don't practice an ideal governance, it will be very difficult to overcome all the challenges that we have, because we have very low income, we have low sanitation status, we have a lot of unemployed people, and we have to combine all these ingredients to come up to a good solution. For example, the waste stream for several of the materials like paper, aluminum, plastic, spent oil, tires, glass, they have a tremendous opportunities for use in the industry in the circular economy. But by far, in terms of the scale, waste to energy is the most reasonable solution. No? But when we advocate for a waste to energy solution, we might leave a lot of unemployed people that live from this waste stream. So how can we combine a definite solution for the waste problem, combined with the social issues and with the circular economy? That's our major challenge that we need, not to manage, but to govern this. And governance means share of power, making decision with the stakeholders, and not a visionary that can say, well, let's do this or so. But in my opinion, of course, if we want to upgrade these systems, we can go in the same direction as the energy sector, as the water sector is going. That is the smart grid. We can keep creating the cities smart grids for waste and know where we can collect the best waste for different destination, for industry, for disposal, for waste to energy. And we compete with the underground economy, that the guys go there first and collect the packaged materials that's supposed to be disposed or collected, and there are underground trucks that go and collect first these materials for recycling. So the challenge is really in the social and political arena. But of course, bringing technology and making it feasible and demonstrated that we can generate jobs, we can generate a better environment, solving the problem of waste and energy at the same time, and also supplying the resources to the industry that can use that in the circular economy, for me, are the major challenges to solve.
Thanks a lot for your thoughts and insight information. As you mentioned, so the problem is not the small one. So if you are specifically in developing countries, the challenge is quite high. So you need to manage different stakeholders. It's not only technology, it's also social, it's also political, because we have different other challenges too. And maybe nowadays, these kind of challenges are not only in developing countries, but also everywhere, like the unemployment issue, spending, so financial issues as well. So, but as a summary, technology can help, as far as I hear, and as
of course. In Sweden, for example, we have a shortage of waste right now. So it's a negative waste stream. They solved all the problems, but it is different comparing a country with 10, 20 million that the extension of the country is small compared to a country with 8.5 million square kilometers and 230 million people that we have more than 25 million is still without an active employment or in the economy. It's very difficult.
Thanks a lot. So I think we are done with the first part. So if we have different questions coming from different attendees, so we can check them and answer those questions. So questions are coming.
Yeah. Umutcan, as always, I have a curiosity and I have a pool. If it is okay for you, I have 2 questions for attendees. Okay, so I have these 2 questions. The first one is, I'm sharing it right away. So again, for YouTube, I'm going to read it out loud. So do you think that the use of technologies will add significant value for the waste management business? It is a yes or a no question. So we will see the ideas from attendees side as well. By the way, from the very beginning, the number have increased also. So the percentage will give us a really good, I think, example. Okay, I am ending it right now and sharing the results with here the members of the Zoom, and for the ones in YouTube, the amount is 100%. So everyone is thinking that usage of technology will be beneficial. So my second question is again in accordance with these. So the question is a scale-up question. So at what scale do you think that your organization makes use of the benefits of the technology in the current time? It is either 1, too little, or 5, too much. So if you're already using the technology, it would be a 5. Okay, what numbers are changing really quick? Okay, so I'm ending up right now and sharing the results here. The percentages are distributed. So 30% says yes, 5, you're using too much technology, or it's either 2 or 3 in between. So from this, I have an idea that everyone is thinking that technology is beneficial, but the usage numbers actually vary from businesses to businesses. Since we have waste management company members here, this is something that I derived from this. So now I think we can continue with the questions since we understand the overall participant information. The first question that I should ask is actually in relation with the last part that we've mentioned about not managing, but the governance of the issue and trickle-down effect to society. So there's this question from Antonio Four saying that how can low-income families take advantage of this improving science, improving technology? So this can be a question for anyone to take. How do you think that the low-income families would take advantage?
Well, first of all, income distribution, reduce the gap between high income to low income. Now, second, about job generation that is driven towards technology, science, and matching the offer and demand. We have to focus a lot on science for research and development. How can we use the transformation of co-products in new products as well? And also removing these people from a high risk situation that will impose high social security risks to the system as well. So, of course, this equation is not very easy to close. No, the large scale is not job intense. So a waste-to-energy plant won't generate the same amount of recycling materials in landfills. No, but of course, the income that a waste-to-energy plant will generate can generate more taxes that can be equally distributed or fairly distributed to the low-income people.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Singer. I have a really quick question that I can ask you, Colin and Umutcan. Are Eureka and RecycleSmart our competitors? What do you think? This is a really quick question, I think. Are Eureka and RecycleSmart competitors?
Yeah, I would say not. Like RecycleSmart, obviously, we buy sensors from sensor provider companies all over the world. So our relationship is more on the hardware and the technology side. And also, I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but I think more on the platform side is where Eureka is really heading, and that's not really our business in terms of the platform. So yeah, I would say it's more of a customer service provider relationship than competitors. Although from the outside looking in, it might seem like we do a lot of the same things.
Yeah, I would say we are adding value to each other instead of being a competitor.
Yeah, that's perfect. And thank you for the answers, and thank you for the question, Mr. Philippe Minassian.
By the way, Philip was a participant for our first webinar. So he's owner of bodybuilder superstructure company in Turkey. So he's really interested in this sector and our webinar. Thanks a lot, Philip.
Yeah, thank you, Philip. And we have this anonymous question. I think I can refer to you, Alex. Do you think there will be a significant regulations to the clothing collection operations after the COVID crisis? Will be a significant regulation for these clothing structures?
That's an interesting question. The guidance, at least in our country, has kind of changed over time as to like how long contamination lasts on different kinds of surfaces. The latest thing I've read is that spreading this virus, or indeed most viruses, through tactile means, through things somebody touches and then passes along, is a very, very low compared to person-to-person contact. So I don't see the virus itself driving any real change in regulations. For us, managing regulations is difficult because there's no national attention to clothing recycling from a regulation standpoint. Some states take it seriously, others don't. In the United States anyway, each town can kind of make its own rules as well. So across the states we operate in, there are hundreds of municipalities that we have to keep track of regulations for. And some are very favorable, some are not so favorable. And just as the traditional recycling materials industry has had to educate the public over time about the importance of recycling, so do we. The difference is we don't have giant aluminum corporations behind us to fund such an operation, and the fashion industry isn't interested in funding what we do either, because they're interested in selling new stuff rather than building a circular economy. So it's difficult. Regulations are tough, and we're as far as creating rules, like we're always trying to help cities and towns create rules that make sense and are helpful to everybody.
Okay, thank you very much. So I also have another interesting question. This is from Mr. Amadou. So the question is how to deal or challenge with the technology for those people who are making their earnings from trash bins. I think, Eugenio, you mentioned that, Mr. Singer. So any technology adaptation, what would it change for the container or trash bin providers? What's your idea on this? Does this change anything for the container providers? Mr. Singer, the question is for you.
Yes, I think we have discussed a lot the eco plants now that can make the reverse of the waste stream now, and create like the automotive industry. They have their systems now that they have all the suppliers and they produce cars. In the reverse area, the governments and the research institutions, they can foster and they can promote small producers to develop products from waste stream that are located in these large areas that concentrate all these materials that I have mentioned to you, like paper, aluminum, plastic, spent oil, tires, glass, and so on. The problem is the taxation. If you put taxes all over these co-products, it's almost infeasible to deal with it. So you have to alleviate the tax systems. You have to promote the import of the technology, and you have to promote the technology development. We work here very close together with a smart guy, a very young scientist of 30 years old, Mr. Gabriel Esteves Domingo, that promotes a lot of a waste conversion of co-products to new products, like pulp from pulp and paper industry into bricks, mining tailings from iron ore to the civil construction industry, the waste from the shrimp farms, producing food for pets and animals. So, but they have to struggle to promote their products, to promote their way of thinking. They are young, bright people that need entrepreneurs fostering this business. So it's a matter of public policy. And I think what's really going to change after COVID-19 is how we formulate new public policy to save the planet. Because the planet is breathing a little bit better now after COVID-19. COVID-19 has done a little bit better for the climate rather than the 25 previous COPs. So I think all the environmental people and government and social scientists, we have to think a way how we are going to manage in the future, especially with reduction in consumption, in materials, optimization of the materials, and of course, investing in science.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Singer. I also have a really interesting question about the technology perspective of it. So the question is for anyone who wants to take it. So the question is, are you studying on how to apply facial recognition to monitor bins and get user data and habits and monitor the mitigate contamination? So it's about using facial technology about having the data of the containers. So, or if you have you ever encountered any solution like this? The question can be asked by Mr. Souza to anyone who wants to take it, actually. This is a really interesting one.
I can add some points.
Okay.
Not maybe facial recognition, but of course there are pay-as-you-throw systems. So the system can basically understand who is throwing the waste, so you can charge considering the amount that the waste you have generated. Instead of recognizing the face, you can have the ID, so you can basically combine it. So we have. But on the other hand, facial recognition can be a challenge as well, specifically the spatial data issue. So it can be a challenge. I don't know how this data can be handled, but it can be an issue. Related with the contamination, I have no idea currently, which we are not working it right now, but as far as I know, there is a company from USA named Compology is working on the contamination issue. Maybe Alex or Colin may have some idea about it.
Yeah, I think in Brazil, we already use some systems like the FID tags, other kind of sensors for inventory control of industry, healthcare, all the consumption areas, for theft control, and many other things. I think is the adaptation is when we are going to face waste, not as a waste, but as a product, and when we associate economic value to the waste, in order to use this sophisticated and already developed technology that can be used to optimize the stream and solve environmental problems.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can speak a bit on the camera side. We're a fairly large customer as Compologies. We have several thousand other cameras deployed, and they're not using them obviously for facial recognition. It's being used for contamination and also for fill levels. But I would say that we have had some instances of people seeing cameras in their waste and recycling dumpsters and being quite I don't want to say upset, but basically alarmed that they are being photographed and kind of the privacy issues around there. So I think that there would be quite a conversation about is my face being recorded and who's getting the data and what is it being used for? And I guess also the other question would be really, what would you be using the data for right now, other than to say, certain types of people are more likely to do something, because we don't really have, in most countries in the Western world anyway, open facial recognition. So we can say, well, Bob went to the garbage can on Friday and contaminate it with garbage type thing. So it's an interesting question. I mean, in kind of the utopian world, yeah, if you opened your garbage can and you were contaminating the recycling bin, it would scan your face and send you a nasty ticket in the mail. But I think we're probably a ways off there, and I'm not sure how comfortable people are with that in terms of where they are and kind of the privacy, paradigm that they live in right now.
Okay, I understand. Thank you very much. So for this one, I'll try to combine two questions. The first one is from Mr. Dixit, and the second one is from Jules Adam. I will try to combine those. So the first part is that the usage of technology can be costlier. What can be done to make these technology more cost effective? This is the first one. The second one is in relation with this. That is why I am combining this. The second part would be, how is the technology supporting market? Do we have enough competition, enough enough suppliers in this technology part? So what do you think? Is there enough number of suppliers in technology? Is it really costly? How can be managed in developing countries?
Well, please go ahead.
I was going to say, we're not operating in a developing country, but for us and what we do, we've explored additional technology solutions like, like field level sensors and these sorts of things, as well as the cameras that Colin was describing. And we've done some tests and some demos, and so what we found so far is that for at least our application, it is cost prohibitive. And what we've seen, I mean, we've been sampling this out. It's it's pretty new technology. It's only been around for the past couple of years, as far as I'm aware. But what we have seen over time, when we revisit these occasionally, is that the technology has advanced pretty rapidly, and that more people have entered the fray. And more companies have entered into competition to do this sort of thing, and also they're slowly. I feel like they slowly seem to be finding the niches where they can be competitive, but also finding where the price point is. It's a natural problem with a new technology that has never been used before, and you're trying to get new customers. You don't know. You don't know what people can afford to pay. And that's different in different industries. Like what I could pay for a camera solution to use in our bins is likely totally different than what value Colin would put on that for his applications. As the field widens and the technology increases, there'll be more flexibility, and we'll continue to look at these things because they do change so rapidly. And hopefully that as that develops, just like every technology, nobody had an iPhone in the third world when they came out, but now mobile phones are ubiquitous across the world for the most part. So it's a similar sort of thing as these problems get solved in wealthier nations and by bigger players, then eventually the technology can get more widespread.
Okay, thank you very much.
Well, I also think that when the technology promotes high cost benefits to environmental health and safety, it should be promoted and have a ban in taxes until we can really produce sustainable results, and then begin slowly to increase taxation and develop the local industry to compete with the international industry as well. We did that in the health systems for the pharmaceutical products. So Brazil now has a very sound public health systems that distribute HIV drugs for all the people that are contaminated and that are ill. And we are doing that for severe and orphan disease, like some kinds of cancers and other areas. So in Brazil now, nobody pays for COVID tests in the public system. But that's not skyrocketing, producing respirators, ventilators, and COVID tests. And we have to think about the globalization. We cannot rely only in one single country producing cheap materials and distributing that worldwide. When we have a crisis like that, everybody suffers a lot.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I just stay speechless after this. Yes, you're absolutely right. Thank you very much. So I have this last two questions. I'm also checking on the time as well. So this one can be to maybe Umutcan, because you've mentioned about pay-as-you-throw structures. This is from Mr. Kamil. Can citizens earn money instead of paying with the help of the technology? Can they earn from recycling?
Yeah, we have seen different kind of applications to earn maybe not money, but maybe some prices, you know, for just to improve the recycling rates. So there are some systems. So if you bring, let's say, glass, or if you bring some plastics, or if you bring some whatever recyclables, let's say, so some systems can give you some kind of points to you, which motivates people to increase the recycling rates.
Mhm.
So this is a potential approach for recycling, but this is not only, I would say this is not going to work alone, because in different countries, different approaches can be implemented at the same time. Then these recycling rates can be increased and stay there as a sustainable level. Otherwise, this bring the plastic and I give you this point, bring the plastic, I give you this point. Then if I stop giving you the point, this can be a challenge. We have seen some scenarios in different countries. This earning can be a challenge as well. But of course, it works, but it should be implemented with different approaches too. Not earning money.
Well, I think this is not new, no. So I'm a recycled teenager, no. So I'm 65 years old, and when I was young, when I was 10 years old, I was a poor boy from a poor family, and I need to buy my comics and my things that I would like to read and to do other things. And I sold the newspaper and glass to the butchers, to the hauler pickers, no, and I made money by selling those materials 55 years ago, no. So you are absolutely right, no. So people can get coupons, can get the money if all these recycled materials have a value to it that can be put in a proper waste stream to get fast into circular economy. That's universal. It has been there for more than a century.
Yeah. True.
Yeah, I think then the question refers to a really good point. Technology can be a part to make it easier and make it beneficial for everyone. That's great. I cannot explain my position to you. I am seeing really good questions here, but sorry for the time and sorry for the ones that I couldn't share. So I personally learned a lot and discovered a lot today. Thank you very much to our panelists and to our attendees. It was a really, really great session, I think. So at this point, again, I have two points to share with you all. The first one is, after closing this Zoom session, you will be seeing a survey. It will be great if you can answer it. Please do not forget. And also, we'll be visiting you back in your email boxes just after a second to give you a survey about feedback, because we're trying to do it always better. And you can always watch the record of this webinar session in our YouTube channel, which is Eureka, and you can find it really easily. So thank you very much. It was great hearing from you all. So stay safe and stay home.
Well, thank you very much. And let's integrate Americas and developing countries.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care.